Hello, my name is Olivia Ming. My pronouns are they, them. And today we're going to talk about motivational interviewing. This is also shortened with MI. I'll be calling it MI throughout the presentation. So, motivational interviewing is going to look like just empathy in action. As we go through this presentation, you might think that, oh, this is just empathy. But empathy is a natural ability to understand and feel what others are experiencing, whereas accurate empathy is a learnable skill, a learnable communication skill, for reflecting back to people your understanding of what they're experiencing. So taking what they have told you and trying to express, is this how you're feeling? And the overall inner attitude of accurate empathy is a curiosity to understand that person's experience. And you can let them know that you are listening and want to be there through reflective listening, which is saying back what they have said to you. So we're going to learn about all this through motivational interviewing. Um, so by, and we're going to Through motivational interviewing, we're going to foster the guest's autonomy and intrinsic motivation through collaborative, empathetic, and supportive dialogue. So here are two learning objectives I want y'all to kind of think about once upon completion of this or throughout. So upon completion of this training, the learner will be able to identify all steps of the ORS process of motivational interviewing. And upon completion of this training, the learner will be able to execute the process of motivational interviewing. Okay, so before we dive into it, some food for thought. Anyone who willingly enters into the pain of a stranger is truly a remarkable person. Henry J. M. Nouwen. So y'all are diving in and wanting to assist these people, lift them up, and um, just recognize that. And also I want y'all to pause throughout this video if you need to. It might be kind of long and there's a lot of content. I'll tell y'all to pause throughout at certain times, but yeah. Okay. So we're gonna start off with the spirit of motivational interviewing. So um, this is the spirit has four separate things. So it has collaboration, acceptance, evocation, and compassion. And we are going to look at what those things mean individually. So we're going to start with collaboration. In a therapeutic relationship using motivational interviewing, it's important to remember that the client is the expert of their own experience. That's why it's called collaboration. Our role is to respect their views and choices, even if they are different from ours. For change to happen and stick, the client or the guest needs to lead the process while we are offering guidance and support. It's a collaborative effort where both people have valuable input. So, an example by Miller and Rolnick, who wrote the motivational interviewing book, um, is that the conversation between you and the guest is like sitting on a sofa. The client is showing you a photo album, pictures of throughout their life. And you're sitting there listening, occasionally asking questions, and your aim is to understand their perspective without pushing your own ideas or agendas on them. You're just asking them questions, digging deeper into their experience. Okay, we're going to move on to acceptance. So, acceptance, um, This is influenced by Carl Rogers' work and how he focused deeply on accepting the client. And Carl Rogers is in the world of psychology. So, so the discussion of deeply accepting the client, this means that you are respecting the client or the guest's worth and potential, even if they don't agree, even if you don't agree with their actions. There are four key aspects of acceptance. So, absolute worth. Absolute worth is about showing unconditional positive regard. You may have heard this previously if you've looked into psychology or studied psychology. Um, that means accepting the client without judgment. When someone feels accepted as they are more likely to change. Unconditional positive regard. Accurate empathy. Practitioners or staff must genuinely try to understand the guest's perspective. It's about sensing the guest's feelings and experiences as if they were your own while still recognizing it is their experience and it is not your experience. That's a big part of it. It's not your experience. You're not gonna try to one up them and say, well, I did this type of thing. Autonomy support. So this says that change is more likely when the client feels that they have the freedom to choose their actions. So, staff should support the guest's ability to make decisions rather than telling them what to do. So, you want to see how you can help them make decisions without telling them exactly how to make those decisions, supporting their autonomy. Okay, now lastly is affirmation. This involves recognizing the client's strengths and efforts rather than focusing on what's wrong with them or what needs fixing. Affirmations uh, ideally will highlight the person's positive qualities like perseverance or prioritizing what matters to them rather than praising specific behaviors. Okay, now we're going to talk about the other two parts of the spirit of motivational interviewing. So, compassion. In motivational interviewing, our main goal is to help someone considering behavior change, and that requires compassion. So, caring about the other person's well-being, essentially. This doesn't mean that, big thing, this doesn't mean you're suffering with the client. This just means that you're focusing on their needs and supporting their best interests. So, for many in helping professions such as Nashville Launch Pad, um, it's promoting others' well-being is a motivation in itself to do the job. So, compassion is most likely already there. Okay, evocation. So, in many settings, the focus is often on what a person is lacking, um, and what needs to be added to them. Like, here, let me give this to you to help you change. Um, and in traditional therapy, the practitioner is seen as the one who identifies what's missing and provides it. So, like, you go to therapy, you go to a meeting, oh, help, like, they're going to give me something to do, and I'll gain this skill to be a better person. However, motivational interviewing is different. It believes that individuals already have what they need within themselves. They already have these skills, and our role is to bring out those strengths and motivations. So, for example, when we're dealing with mixed behaviors, we recognize that people often don't have reasons to both change or keep certain behaviors. So, our job is to strengthen the motivation to change that already exists within them. Okay, reminder, very important reminder. Not everyone wants your advice or opinion. It is important to always ask the person for permission to offer advice or opinions. This will ultimately help build rapport by giving them the autonomy to say yes or no. Yes, I want your opinion, or no, that's okay. I'm good. Okay. So there's 4 steps to MI, and I put these little humans running up and down the stairs of motivational interviewing because I wanted it to be clear that motivational interviewing is not a linear process of steps and goals and things to do. Um, it's these processes overlap and blend throughout, kind of like these stair steps do. And you're going to be moving up and down and constantly reassessing as, the person is progressing, you know, throughout their lives. So let's get into these steps. So this is the first step, engaging. So each step has kind of a question that you're asking yourself throughout. And I put this at the top of the slide. So this one is, can we walk together? So this is all about building rapport with the guests. As it says here, trust and mutual respect are foundational to any relationship. Listening well with an uncluttered mind is key. So active listening. You're actively listening to what they're saying, not thinking about what you're going to respond to them, but really listening. And a quote from the book that I thought was very helpful says, every time you listen well, it strengthens engagement. So people notice when you listen to them. Okay, so within the engaging process, so within engaging, there is this concept called oars. So this is a continuum. It's you're not moving from step to step to step and then stopping. So it's oars like a boat oar. Um, you're navigating your way through life. Anyway, bad joke. O, open questions. A, affirmations. R, reflections, and S, summarizing. So we're going to go through these different things. And this is a very important concept. So if you need to pause, take notes, go ahead. Okay, so this right here is one of the most important aspects of motivational interviewing is open questions. Um, so this is an alternative to telling. You're inviting the person to tell you more than just a yes or no, and allowing passive answers. So, for example, you could say, why do you think it's important to follow the rules instead of saying, if you don't follow the rules, you'll get kicked out? By asking someone why it's important, this supports evocation, which we will talk about in a few slides. So, something I wanted to highlight here is that intake interviews for social services often have a series of closed questions, even if they sound like they may be more open, they still have the opportunity of being closed. So, for example, a closed question would be, are you married? How long have you been feeling this way? Do you drink? If so, how much per day? Have you had anything to eat this morning? So questions like this can put a person in a passive position where they can then just kind of be there and say yes or no. They're not actively involved in the conversation. Um, so once the intake and facts are gathered, it's important to ask more open questions to learn more about them. So examples of open questions include, what's on your mind today? How would you like for things to be different with your partner? In what ways is this important to you? How are you hoping I or we might be able to help? So the point here is that often you'll learn more about a person. Oh, I think I just glitched. Okay. Sorry. The point here is that often you'll learn more about a person with good empathetic listening than you will even by asking questions. So if they start talking, then you can really learn a lot about them. Okay. So this is the second part of ORS, still in the engaging step of motivational interviewing. So there's kind of a lot going on here. So I'm going to explain. So there are two types of affirmations, simple affirmations and complex affirmations. Simple affirmations are going to comment positively on something that someone said or did. And then complex affirmations highlight an enduring positive characteristic of the person. So I'll read off one example that's on the slide. Um, you somehow knew what to do and went ahead and did it. That's a simple affirmation. A complex affirmation, once you make up your mind about something, you persist until you succeed. That's like telling someone you know, all of these things they've been through, someone is watching them and seeing like the effort that they're putting in. So, and oftentimes simple affirmations become disingenuous over time, especially because they don't seem like a genuine compliment once you continue getting it. Like, you did that, good job. You really did it. You took action. Yeah, that can get very disingenuous. So, complex affirmations are an excellent way to ensure that the guest you're listening to ensure the guests that you're listening to them and acknowledge the inner work that they're doing within themselves because that's hard work. Um, so I I want to point something out. Affirmations are can actually end up being bad if delivered in a certain way. So um, always be aware of what you are affirming because this can lead to maladaptive behavior and worse outcomes. So um, maladaptive means just behavior that's not beneficial to the person in or their lives. So an example of this would be affirming aggressive behavior, such as, oh yeah, like good job standing up for yourself. You really stood up for her. And when it really could have been handled in a much better way, by just a discussion rather than a screaming match or a physical altercation. Okay, this is the third part of ORS, third out of fourth. So this is reflections. So this reflections close the gap between what you believe a person means and what they're actually experiencing. So, this, I'm going to point this out, this diagram right here. So, the client says something, you hear it, and then you interpret that. You hear it and you say, oh, they meant this. So then you say that to them, oh, I meant this. And then they express what they actually meant, or they say, yeah, that is what I meant. And that is what reflective listening is. So it's like all of these things, it requires collaboration between you and the guest, and it works best when formed in a statement, not a question. So, I am going to, and we're going to use simple and complex reflections throughout as well. Okay. Yes, here are some examples. So, a simple reflection to this statement. So, someone talks to you and they say, I'm feeling kind of down today. So, you can respond with a simple reflection, which would be, you're feeling low. Not a question, just you're feeling low. And then they respond, I'm not sure what it is, but I feel like I'm dragging. It takes a lot of effort to just walk around. Slowed down, like I'm dragging a lot of weight behind me. Okay, so that's just kind of surface level talk, right? So let's move to the complex reflections. I'm feeling kind of down today. You respond like you don't have much energy. They say, yes, like the life has been drained out of me. So then you say, and you're not sure what's going on. And then they respond with, I'm thinking of something Emma said to me last night. So here we can see we're getting a much more um, clear picture of what's going on with this person. Emma said something to them, and they're feeling pretty down about it, but they don't really understand what to do about it. And then on the other hand, simple reflections, you're just hearing that they're still down. Yeah. Okay. So the last part of ORS is summarizing. Um, so summarizing is just a collection of reflections that you put together with particularly impactful things about the person's experience, and asking if there is anything else. And this doesn't have to wait till the end. You can offer mini summaries throughout, to ensure them that you're listening. So this is uplifting and affirming in itself. Like, oh, wait, can I clarify? You said this, just so they know that you are actively listening and reflectively listening. So, um, this is an example. So, so far, I've heard you're worried about losing this job, and you're also worried about a recent fight you were in. What else? Can you elaborate on that? So, you're affirming them, and you're also giving them the autonomy and space to elaborate or not. And this diagram here, I just wanted to show and highlight how within the ORS process, reflections and summaries are consistently feeding into each other, and this throughout this continuum. So summaries are just a collection of reflections and so forth. So everything works together. Okay, so now we're out of engaging and ORs and we're moving into focusing. This is the second step. So our question here is, where are we going? Okay, so it's an ongoing process with changes in focus possible throughout. So it's important to gently bring back the focus to shared goals of topic, if to shared goals if the topic strays in conversation at any point. So at this point, we're clarifying changes, as it says, clarifying changes as we're going and continually refocusing. So there are three types of focusing scenarios. So in the book, it says, I just wanted to highlight this quote from the book as well. Listen well while also keeping your eyes on the horizon. So you want to remember the goal while you're also listening to what they're saying and keeping it focused to them. So the first part of the first type of focusing scenario is straightforward goals. So sometimes the goal is clear right from the jump. So for example, someone might say, I want to get my driver's license, I need to apply for a loan, or I want to lose weight. So in these cases, there might not be much to focus further on, but some clarification could still be helpful. So, for example, have they ever had a driver's license before? Asking those questions. Or what type of loan are they looking for? What's the purpose of this loan? Um, have you tried anything for weight loss before? What were the results? And then once that goal is clear, you can start exploring why the person wants to make the change and think about what extra support you might offer. So when it comes to behavior change, sometimes really all it takes is clarifying the goal and helping the person connect with their own reasons for change, and then just show them it's possible, like you can do this. Okay, so the second focusing scenario is choosing a path. So this is when the main goal of the person is clear, but it's not obvious how to reach the goal. So you can make a list of different ways to work towards the goal and then decide which one to focus on first. So sometimes a bubble sheet is used for this, or you just want to show it to them visually or in different ways. And so you can draw bubbles together or use prepared sheet with common choices on it. And I'm going to have an example of that sheet. And I think it's on the next slide. Yes, it's on the next slide. You know what? I'll just pull it up right now so you can see as I'm talking about it. This is the choosing a path bubble sheet that I'm discussing. Okay. So the questions they'll be asking are like, this time I want to stay, or the things they might be saying, this time I want to stay sober, or how can I improve my chances of being hired, or I want to learn how to manage my diabetes. So next, I'm going to talk about clarifying. And this is when you might ask someone what's going on and they say, everything, literally everything. My life's a mess. There's no hope. So this, whatever hopes the person has for change, they're very vague. So, um, the authors of the motivational interviewing book actually described it, the state that the guest would be in would as um, trying to see your way through fog or a cloudy windshield. So it's very unclear. So clarifying usually starts with general concern or stress, and then it may take more time for active listening. Um, so part of the process might involve helping the person feel less stressed or confused. After listening to the main concerns, then the next thing you can do is identify possible changes and figure out what the most important thing to them is. Um, and this kind of focusing moves from, so you're trying to move from broad, very broad, to very specific goals. So presenting them with a bubble sheet of very broad topics could be helpful. So I'll show you that next to the clarifying, next to the choosing a path. So the choosing a path one, this is allowing the person to be more active in their own goals, and consider what they can work on towards their goals. So this person had wanted to discuss their diabetes, and there are multiple things within that. So, um, yeah. And then within clarifying, remember this is where um, it's literally everything is wrong in my life. I don't know what's going on. So you can give them something like this, where it's like, the things that are stressing me out the most are my relationships, my finances, my alcohol use, sexual health, housing, all of these things. So this is allowing the person to narrow down their stressors in an active way rather than just letting it float up there and not being able to identify their thoughts. Okay, so the third step in motivational interviewing is evoking. So the question here is, why would we go there? Why would you go there? Not we. Why would you go there? So this step is by asking someone what's important, you are supporting evocation, which is empowerment. It's like it's pulling forth something from someone. So calling forth what is already present. And this is the primary vehicle for empowerment. So within evoking, I wanted to discuss ambivalence, change talk, and sustained talk. So um, ambivalence, in summary, it's the feeling of being torn between wanting to change and being attached to the current behavior or situation. Um, so motivational interviewing helps individuals explore, um, it helps individuals explore their ambivalence or conflicted feelings, mixed emotions, for change, helping them move past any kind of hesitation, um, and work towards taking action steps, and you're not stuck in that limbo state. So the goal is not to force change, though, but to support the person in finding their own reasons and confidence to move forward. Um, so I I want to read the column on the left and then the column on the right, and then I'm going to compare. So the column on the left is change talk. So, okay, I want to quit smoking. I think it's possible for me to quit. My children are begging me to quit. I've got to quit smoking. I'm willing to give it another try. I'm going to quit. And I bought some nicotine gum today. Um, so this gives, when read all of these things, it gives me a sense of I want to quit smoking because I'm speaking with active change talk. So now we move on to sustain talk. I really enjoy smoking. I don't think I could stand the withdrawal. It's the only way I have to relax. I need to be able to smoke. I plan to keep smoking. I've decided to keep smoking. And I bought 2 cartons of cigarettes today. So it moves from that desire to the taking steps. So you move from I want to quit smoking to I bought nicotine gum. You moved from sustained talk, I really enjoy smoking. I bought 2 cartons of cigarettes today. Um, so if someone's ambivalent, you're going to hear these mixed statements between change and sustained talk. Um, so you can try to, yeah, force. You can try to, anyway. Okay, so now I want to show you all this video and talk about, wait, no, that's not what I was gonna do. Ambivalence. Okay, now we're moving on to the planning step. So the questions here are, how will you get there? Knowing what you know about yourself, what do you think it would take for you to make this change? So it's focusing on the how and shifting from the why of the previous steps. So planning is the how, and the other three are why. Eliciting that why in that person, that desire. So how are we going to do that? So here we have a video I would like to show you about brief action planning, which is a um, great skill, and she explains it very well. She's got some great content, so I'm going to play that for y'all now.
Brief action planning, BAP, is an MI consistent tool that we can use in the planning task of motivational interviewing. So first, let me back up. There's 4 tasks in motivational interviewing. The first task is engagement, connecting and engaging with the client. The second is focusing, exploring what that change target is. The third is evoking, helping connect our clients more deeply into their motivation for change or their why change. And the fourth task is the planning task. And that's when clients are ready to move from the why change into the how change. This is where BAP comes in. And BAP is even mentioned in the newest edition, the 2023 edition of the Motivational Interviewing book by Miller and Rolnick. It's referenced as a great MI consistent tool to use in the planning task of MI. And I found this to be true. I came across BAP a couple of years ago, and it's a really simple, straightforward process that's really helped enhance my planning with clients. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, and I'm going to link some more free resources below. So the first question of BAP is there anything you would like to do about your health in the next week or two? It's a closed-ended question, but it's very targeted to see, is this person ready to move from the discussion about the change into the plan or how they're going to go about making that change. And if the answer is yes, then we move forward in helping create a really specific change plan with them. Again, using the motivational interviewing spirit, using the OR skills to elicit and evoke a change plan from them, work collaboratively with them on that and help get it really specific. And then at the end of the BAP planning process, we ask a scaling question. And this is for motivational interviewing. The scaling question for confidence is, how confident are you in this plan on a scale of 0 to 10? And if our clients answer less than a 7, then it's an opportunity for us to rework the plan with them. We definitely don't want to send clients out the door not feeling confident about a change plan that they just created with us. We want them to feel confident about that plan. So a 7 or higher. And so it gives us some tools for what to do when that happens and how to help resize that plan so that they're feeling more confident about making that change. So that's a little overview of BAP, but there's so much more to learn. I'm going to link a handout below about that 5-step process. And we have a 1-hour webinar on BAP, and there's lots of other learning opportunities through the BAP network. And there's even some videos on the BAP network YouTube channel that you can see of that BAP plan and process. Thanks for tuning in.
Okay. I recommend, if you want to dive deeper into this, looking into her stuff, her resources. Yeah, very helpful. Okay, so now we're gonna talk about planning in further detail with brief action planning, as she was discussing. But first, I want to talk about the figure on the left. These are indications of successful change talk. If you hear these things, you can print this out, even put it in a little binder when you're doing your meetings. But if you notice these things, this person is in a place where they're ready to start making some changes. So the figure on the right, this is the brief action plan you're talking about. And this is that confidence scale that she was discussing, where if it's below a 7, we want to discuss the plan. So I'm going to kind of discuss brief action planning for a second. Um, so it's a simple, structured approach that helps individuals take immediate and manageable steps towards their goals. So it involves working with the person to identify small and realistic goals that they are able to commit to, um, which will make it easier for them to get closer to those goals, those big long-term goals. So focus is on clarity, feasibility, and follow through. Well, that's why there's a confidence scale there. Like, are you sure? Like, you want to do this? Yes. Okay. So this is typically going to involve these things. So the first thing it's going to involve is clarifying the goal you have with that client, the client has with you that you've come up with. So um, it's important to make it specific and meaningful to the individual. This is how the most change will come about. So here's an example. A person may express a desire to improve their health, and then through a conversation, clarifying the goal, you help them focus to say, I want to start regularly exercising. So you figure that out about them. So you've clarified that goal, and then you're going to move on to the second step, which is identifying small, concrete steps instead. So we move past the here's what we'll do, the clarifying, and now we're at the steps. How much? What are we going to do? How often? So instead of focusing on a big, overwhelming goal, the brief action plan is going to break it down into the small goals. So instead of saying get healthy, a concrete action would be I'll walk. So we'll say I will walk 1 mile, and then it'll be, or I will walk daily, and then how much? 15 minutes when 3 times a week, or how often. So the next thing is the third thing is exploring barriers. So you're going to discuss any obstacles that the person might face when they're taking these steps. So you want to make sure they've thought through everything as they are, coming up with their goals and stuff and their action plan. So, um, and if you do find a barrier, then you can solve it in that way with them to overcome it and empower them that way. So, here's an example. If um, the person's goal is to exercise, but they feel too tired, you might want to explore adjusting the time of day that they exercise or starting with easier workouts, more, shorter sessions, kind of easing into it, just kind of letting them know it's not all or nothing type of thing. The fourth thing is setting a time frame. So the individual is going to commit to taking action within a specific time frame, and then this is going to help with accountability and then create that sense of urgency, like, oh, I do have a time frame, but it is a doable time frame for me. So, example, the person could commit to walking 15 minutes a day by next Tuesday and follow up in the next session. So they don't have to start this right away. Maybe they start it the day before you meet, they follow up. How did it go? It went well. So the fifth thing is following up and reviewing. So brief action planning does include checking in on the person's progress during the next meeting, which keeps them accountable. So, for example, when you meet again, you review whether the person did do that walking 15 minutes a day and followed through with their action plan, and then you kind of explore what went well and then what didn't go well, and any challenges they faced, and ensure that they feel open and honest to share that so you can get that and help them through that. Yeah. So overall, brief action planning focuses on the person's strengths, promotes self-efficacy, encourages commitment, and helps set realistic goals through small, manageable steps. And then it ultimately leads to greater confidence and motivation for achieving those larger goals. So this is a great way to help the guests. Okay, so this slide is the last slide before we get into case studies. I have 4 case studies, but let's talk about these graphics. So these are just like overall MI helpful tips. So on the left, we have one about asking permission, open questions, closed questions, and then they give examples down here of when you're giving feedback and listening, how to listen, reflect. So just some reminders. And then the one on the right, um, encouraging motivation to change. So it gives some examples of if the questions you're asking are going to motivate change within the person. And the graphic on the right is from the the woman who talked, Messina. Um, those are from her resources in her YouTube channel, so very helpful. Okay, so now we're gonna get into the case studies, and what I'm gonna do is read them out, and then I'm gonna wait a few seconds and I want y'all, or I'm gonna wait, yeah, and I want y'all to pause the video, and really think through it. And you can go back in the video and like see what you would do and which steps you would use in motivational interviewing in these case studies. So I'll give you a reminder to pause as well. Okay, so first case study, this is Harper. So Harper is a 23-year-old assigned female at birth, trans non-binary person of color who has a history of mental health concerns and multiple ACEs. You are performing their initial intake interview for MHNC. They are making steps towards getting a job, but are experiencing an obvious decline in mental health. Harper discloses that they realize that their mental health is declining, but says that they do not feel like they need mental health services. How would you navigate this conversation using the principles of MI? Focus on the open questions portion of the ORS process for this case. So remember, ORS is within the engaging process or step of motivational interviewing, and ORS is open questions, affirmations, reflections, and summarizing. So I'm gonna be quiet for a few seconds and I want y'all to pause and think about this. Okay, now let's discuss. So remember, this is while you're performing their initial intake, and it's within the engaging um, step of MI. So engaging is focusing on building rapport with the client through active listening and the ORS process. So Harper is telling you that they don't think they need mental health services, when in fact there are behaviors present. Um, and this is a perfect opportunity to begin pulling that motivation out of them. So Harper's focused on getting a job. So let's bring the focus to that. So we're going to start with an open-ended question. What challenges have you faced when looking for a job? So this opens up the conversation and allows mental health to become a topic here. It is recommended to follow up all open questions with two reflections. So um, I want to first, I'll give an example of the two reflections, but I want to give these um, examples. So you've mentioned that you've noticed a decline in your mental health. Can you tell me more about what you've been experiencing lately? So this question specifically invites Harper to explore their feelings and thoughts in their own words, therefore fostering self-reflection and then deeper insight into their mental health. So the next question you could ask, what do you think might be contributing to the changes you're experiencing or noticing in your mental health? This encourages Harper to connect their experiences with possible triggers, whether related to their job search, their history, and other stressors in their life. So that's causing them to think about those things. Then the next question, you said you don't feel like you need mental health services right now. Why do you feel that way? This question opens space for Harper to reflect on their readiness for help and also consider what could shift their perspective on seeking services. And then the last one, how do you feel about the balance between your mental health and your goals, like finding a job? What challenges have you faced? So this question gently introduces the idea that mental health may be influencing their other life goals. So this is helping Harper connect their mental state to their desired outcomes. And then this is one more example with the framework recommended, open question, reflection, reflection. So in relation to Harper. So open question, what challenges have you faced when looking for a job? Harper responds, well, the other employees just don't like me because I need to take more breaks. I get overwhelmed a lot and people piss me off. I've worked at gas stations and restaurants before. I just feel like no one gives a crap about me. So then you can reply with either of these questions, right? Or reflections. One, you feel like the people you work with don't like you. And then two, you're feeling anxious when you go to work. Notice how it's not a question, it's a statement, like a reflection. So, okay, second case study is Leo. Leo is a 20-year-old white cisgender male who has cognitive differences due to repeated drug use throughout adolescence. He has been exhibiting adverse behaviors in MHNC and has been causing verbal arguments in the space. He has not been cleaning up after himself in the kitchen and disrupts community spaces with loud music often. He is also known to pick on people just to start an argument. It is time for a behavioral follow-up. How can you use the reflections portion of ORS to begin the stages of change for Leo's behavior? So we're still in the engaging portion of motivational interviewing, and we're focusing on the reflections portion of ORS. I will give y'all a few minutes, few seconds. Pause right here. Okay. So I'm going to move on to this slide. So to use the reflection portion of ORS with Leo, the goal um, is to help him understand his behavior and its impact while also encouraging him to explore his own motivations for change. So here's how you can approach it in a few different ways. So reflecting what Leo might be feeling. So this would sound like, it sounds like you might feel frustrated or upset when things aren't going the way you want, and that's when the arguments and disruptions happen. So this shows that you're understanding his feelings, which helps him feel heard and also supported throughout. Next, reflecting the effect of his behavior, this will sound like, I hear you might not realize that picking on people and playing loud music can affect how others feel around you. Do you think that's something that might be happening? This invites Leo to think about the impact of his actions on others without directly criticizing him for doing it. You're just suggesting something and asking him if he thinks that's the case. Next is reflecting ambivalence. So this is when you're unsure of change. Um, so you can say, it seems like part of you understands that disruptions might be causing issues, but another part of you feels like it's not a big deal. Is that how you're feeling? This reflects his mixed feelings, making space for him to explore both sides of the issue. And then our last one is reflecting his strengths and affirmations to encourage self-efficacy. So this will sound like you've managed to stick with things before, even when they've been tough. It seems like you have the ability to make changes if you choose to. So this helps reinforce his ability to take action and feel confident about making changes. By reflecting in these ways, you'll help Leo better understand his feelings and behaviors while continuously encouraging him to consider what he might want to make, like, want to get out of this. and how to go about them. Okay, next, we have Lacey. So Lacey is a 19-year-old Black female who has been living at MHNC for 2 months. She has relied on people her entire life who have abused her, including an abusive ex-boyfriend she broke up with 1 month ago. Lacey is lacking the motivation to set goals for herself and tends to sleep all day or hang out on the couch in the community room. During your goal setting meeting, she tells you her main goal is to live on her own. How will you ensure Lacey is meeting her goals and increases her internal motivation using the focusing step of motivational interviewing? So I'm going to give y'all a little bit again, pause it here. Okay, I left a lot of time that time. My bad. Okay, so this is something that I would recommend for Lacey. So remember, we're in the focusing stage, so we're asking where are we going? So here we need to use this bubble map to clarify the goal. So Lacey decides she wants to discuss work, alcohol use, emotional health, and relationships. So that's starting to clarify the goal here. Um, for Lacey, this could be helpful because it's written out and she can choose from the information in front of her. Um, so something I would say is you mentioned wanting to live on your own. Can you tell me more about what you would like, what that would look like for you, and why is that important? So then you want to take um, the steps of breaking down the goal into smaller, more manageable steps so it doesn't feel overwhelming, so Lacey can see the path forward. Um, so this would sound like what do you think would be the first step towards living on your own? Maybe finding a job or finding a therapist. And then we're gonna work towards the third step, prioritizing. So helping her figure out which step is the most important to start with and which one feels the most doable. So we're just focusing here on these steps by doing first, clarifying the goal, exploring the steps, prioritizing, and then four, reflecting on strengths and motivation. So reminding Lacey of her strengths, such as the fact that it took courage for her to leave her abusive relationship. So building on the confidence and internal motivation that you can say leaving your ex took a lot of strength. How do you think you can use that same strength to work towards living on your own? So you're taking her goal and breaking it down into steps and then highlighting her strength so you can then help her gain clarity and motivation to work towards living independently. Okay. This is the fourth and final case study, and we're going to be focusing on the planning step. So this is about Anaya. Anaya is a 21-year-old white trans woman. She grew up with her parents mostly absent, leading her to fend for herself from a young age. She never had a stable home or formal roommates and has been living on the streets and couch surfing since she was 17. She's now in MHNC and has been having conflict with other residents and staff due to her making racist comments towards other guests who are not white. So, also for Covenant and um, just moral purposes, I'm saying that this is the first time this person has done this because racism is not allowed in Launchpad. I just want to point that out. So she expresses the desire to be friends with people, um, but has not made any actionable steps to change her behavior. How will you ensure Anaya is meeting her goals and increases her internal motivation using the planning step of MI? So here, I want you to focus on like she is expressing that desire, so that's why we're doing the planning. So, um, pause and then and think about it, and then we will get into it. Okay. So for Anaya, I would love to see an action plan, brief action plan. I think that would be very effective as well as this confidence scale. This is very helpful for a visual. So I put on here, seek kinder ways to interact with my peers. That's what she's gonna do. So um, not that sure. 6. This is just an example, but anyway. So I'm gonna discuss what we would do with this action plan. Um, so first we're gonna affirm her goal and autonomy. So affirming her desire to connect with other people and make that change. So saying, it sounds like having friends and family, and feeling connected is really important to you. That's a strong goal, and it's definitely something we can work towards on your own terms. So 2, we're gonna elicit change talk and help her explore the gap between her goal and which is the connection between her goal and her current behavior. So the conflict and the racism. So you can say something like, you've said you want to make friends here. What do you think is getting in the way of that happening right now? So you let her reflect, and then if needed, you can gently guide her to consider how her words might be affecting others in certain ways as she's discussing with you. So then we're going to collaborate on actionable steps. So this is once she identifies some of the barriers, you're going to work together to come up with small, achievable steps through this action plan that align with her goals. So you're wanting to keep her in the driver's seat the entire time. So something you could say is, what's one small thing you might try that could help build trust with the other residents? And then if she's stuck, you can offer a bunch of options. You can say listening more than before speaking, asking someone about their day, reflecting on what led to the conflict before reacting, and then other person-specific things too that you find throughout talking to this individual. Okay. 4th thing, strengthening commitment. So once you co-create a plan, you want to support that commitment. So this is where this scale comes in. So on a scale from 1 to 10, how confident do you feel about trying that this week? And then it could be what would make it feel like a 7 if it's not a 7? Say what could make it feel like a 7 or an 8 instead of a 4? What can we do to get that 7? Okay, 5, planning for obstacles. So anticipating that setbacks might happen and normalize that setbacks happen. Just say if this doesn't happen, that's fine. It's just a goal. Um, you can say this like, sometimes change is hard, especially when things feel tense. If something comes up and it doesn't go the way you hoped, what could help you stay on track? So kind of working towards a plan with them. Okay, 6, the last thing. Reinforcing motivation, so tying it back to her values and her vision. So if these steps help you feel more connected and less isolated, what do you think that would mean for your time here at Launchpad and after? So how is this going to go into your life moving forward? So, in summary, I'll give a summary of this case. The planning step, your focus is on evoking her own motivation, collaboratively identifying specific and realistic steps, building confidence and preparing for obstacles, and connecting her actions to her deeper goals like belonging and stability. So, that is all I have for you. Um, thank you so much for listening. I know this was might have been long, um, but please feel free to reach out with any questions at oliviaming.98@gmail.com. And yeah, thank you. Here are my references. I highly recommend reading these.